Good morning, everybody. Last night, as I was going to bed, I came across the video of this, but Amanda Connolly introduces it wonderfully, so I'll let her via Twitter. She says, quote, Immigration Minister Hussen was asked at a presser a few moments ago whether the federal government will pay for the private security hired to protect Raif Mohammed, who is receiving death threats and refuses to answer, saying, quote, I don't want to discuss those particular details. When asked again for further details on how her claim was processed so quickly, Hussen points to the claim being handled through a program within IRCC called the Urgent Protection Program. When also asked about criticisms of why talks with the U.S. over the Safe Third Country Agreement are not leading to any changes, Hussen hits at the Tories, saying, quote, their plan is to militarize the border. We don't have the resources for that kind of half-baked and practical plan. No, it would be like just opening the border and then putting the people who cross into hotels. We don't have the resources for that either, Mr. Hussen. That's a crazy plan too. But first, here he is talking about the Tories after being asked about criticism about not being able to close the Safe Third Country Agreement at all.
I haven't seen anything from the Conservatives. They don't have a plan. You know what their plan is? To militarize the border and place a CBSA official or an RCMP official every 100 meters. We don't have the resources for that kind of, half-baked, impractical plan. And by the way, we've been talking...
I'm going to stop him there. Half-baked and impractical, sir. I mean... I wish there was some kind of plan. I did a video yesterday about homeless people in Canada, and the problem has been skyrocketing under your government. And part of the problem is our immigration policy. That's a ludicrous plan. That's a crazy plan. To bring people here who can't support themselves and then plan to have the state support them indefinitely. That's a crazy plan. Opening the border completely, that's a ludicrous plan. So Canada is not on your side here, sir. You're talking complete and utter nonsense. And I hope that you know that we see through this. This is TikTok. Mr. Scheer responds to this blatant, and it's a poorly executed attack. It didn't really have anything to do with the question. He just shoehorned it in. But Andrew Scheer responds, he says, quote, more liberal desperation. They tried the, quote, soldiers with guns attack once before. Didn't work so well. Conservatives are the only party offering action to take back control of Canada's border. The Liberals continue to do nothing but deflect and attack. I found this reply interesting. This was tweeted out yesterday at 11:53 a.m. And the only party? Really? So I think here, the reason that I'm pointing that out is Mr. Scheer's strategy is going to be to ignore Bernier. He's not going to mention him. That's what I think. I think he's just going to ignore him. He's going to pretend that he doesn't exist, and he's going to try and eat his lunch without looking like he's following him, because that's already been floated in the press a couple of times, right? That he's following Bernier's lead, really. So I think his strategy is to completely ignore him. And the reason I say that, Maxime Bernier has been hammering Mr. Scheer for the last 24 hours, 48 hours, the whole past couple of days. He's been, and I'll show you a bunch of different tweets where he's hammering Scheer, and he's not letting up. And Mr. Bernier also criticizes the sitting government, the Trudeau government, and talks about Trudeau often. So he's not just attacking Scheer. I want to make that clear. I'm highlighting attacks on Scheer because I want to make a point, but Mr. Bernier is attacking Trudeau and the government as well. Okay, so he says, quote, Maxime Bernier says, quote, Andrew Scheer doesn't want to reduce the number of immigrants. He wants to spend more on services to welcome them. And it says, question, quote, are there too many immigrants coming into Canada? Scheer, quote, it's not a question of too much. It's a question of, are our services ready to welcome them? And this is a link to a French interview. I apologize that it's in French, so we're not going to watch it. And hopefully there's a translation or something like that soon. I will play it when there is a translation. I wish I spoke French because I would translate it myself. And this is the same tab, so we'll keep going. Pipelines in Quebec. Pipelines au Quebec, Scheer versus Bernier. And I'm going to read this as it is in French. So I'm going to mute it and read it. But this is Scheer versus Bernier with Scheer first, and it says pipelines in Quebec, Scheer versus Bernier. And it's the reporter talking and then Scheer, and then I'll try and make it plain. Okay, reporter. My question, and we'll end on this. My question is, let's say you do fulfill all the federal requirements to build a pipeline that runs through Quebec, but you don't have the will or approval of Quebec government. Would you still go ahead with it, Mr. Scheer, yes or no? But I'm sure we can find common ground. That's his response. Mr. Bernier, what would you do as the PM if the project wasn't approved by Quebec? Bernier says, firstly, we must make sure the project is accepted by the private sector. The private sectors set it aside. But let's say they do accept, says the host. Bernier says, in that case, we must go forward with the project. The federal government has all the legislative tools needed to approve the project. You would impose it on Quebec, asked the host. Yes, we can impose it through the General Advantage Clause of the Constitution. So there you go. There's Bernier versus Scheer on pipelines. Scheer this is his hallmark. He's saying that we can find a compromise. We can find common ground. We can positively do this. And Bernier is saying, yeah, we're going to build a pipeline. Yeah, I'm going to use the Constitution to make sure we build a pipeline because that's in the best interest of Canada. So that's interesting. So I just want to show you, because I did videos about, this was in my last tweet roundup. So I just want to show you some examples of what Bernier is doing. And these are again Scheer attacks, but he says, I say yes to pipelines in both languages. He retweets, why doesn't Andy Scheer talk pipelines in Quebec? He doesn't have the courage of his convictions, or more likely no convictions. And Andrew Scheer courts Quebec with immigration offer but avoids pipeline talk. And that was a CBC article I looked at the other day as well. You can check out my other videos. They're there. Maxime Bernier, again, it says Scheer didn't specify what powers a conservative government would have transferred to Quebec. He also remained vague about whether he supported a CAQ plan to reduce by more than 20% the number of immigrants Quebec accepts annually. Vague, centrist, pragmatic. So Bernier is hitting. And this is an election year. This is appropriate in that we have a communication tool that is this direct, and people are using it. So I wanted to show you, I went through Andrew Scheer's Twitter and I couldn't find a response. There wasn't a response to any of Bernier's tweets. And you can smartly respond in a way that is not necessarily naming Bernier. I think you can look at not the criticisms, but you can speak more strongly to the pipelines. People are asking you to. You are, Mr. Scheer, vague on a lot of your policies. And I understand there's a rollout and there's a plan. But at this point in time, people are, like I said, we're in an election year and time is short. People are interested. So, but it's your campaign to run. But I think that it is interesting that Mr. Bernier is given so much room to highlight holes in the platform. And there are other holes that he's not even highlighting. The climate change plan that is continually promised and never delivered. And so Bernier has a plan of let the provinces handle it, and he'll unwind, like there's no federal carbon tax or anything to that effect. The Liberals' plan is clearly a carbon tax imposed on any province that doesn't have their own carbon tax, and Mr. Scheer's plan is somewhere in the middle. Same with immigration. No firm numbers, we're going to match it to employment numbers. Well, that doesn't help people who are looking to have a firm cap, because it seems like the number of immigrants is forever increasing. And using the excuse of we need more people to work, that's not a good enough excuse. Why isn't the government incentivizing Canadians to have babies? Why do we have to replace ourselves fully with immigrants? Why is that the policy, and why is nobody talking about it? This is a huge deal that nobody's even touching. It's incredible. So that is an important thing to note. Mr. Scheer is ignoring Bernier, and he's ignoring him in order to attack Trudeau, and he's ignoring him in order to to do these tweets, right? So this is a little bit before Bernier was really attacking, or maybe this is after January 22nd. So yeah, this is after Bernier started things on the 21st, I believe he was attacking him. So anyway, it is what it is. Just be aware. Okay, so Andrew Scheer says about Trudeau, Justin Trudeau's newest line of attack against Conservative is easily his most desperate and hypocritical yet. CBC Politics, link in the description, it says the PM says the Conservatives pretend to be, quote, for the people, but their voting record shows they made choices, quote, all to protect the wealthy, the well-connected, and the powerful. And the second tweet of this 12 tweet thread says, after taking a $200,000 tropical vacation with a billionaire lobbyist, and he has a link to Trudeau's Bahamas vacation cost over $215,000, far more than initial estimates. Yes, shocking. And number 3 of 12, bringing his personal celebrity chef on his disgraceful trip to India. Here it is, personal celebrity chef. That's a very interesting celebrity chef, I'm sure. And 4 of 12, charging taxpayers for swing sets, zip lines, jet boats, and helipads at his summer cottage. And there's a link to the Brian Lilly article. 5 of 12, giving massive carbon tax breaks to the largest corporate emitters. 6 of 12, canceling child arts and fitness tax credits for families. 7 of 12, and hiking taxes for 80% of middle-class families. Yep, if you are in the middle class, you just got a tax increase of about $2,000 this year. You're welcome, Justin Trudeau. 8 of 12, Justin Trudeau has the nerve to accuse conservatives of siding with the wealthy, and here are the facts. 9 of 12, under Justin Trudeau, the wealthiest Canadians are paying $4.6 billion less in taxes. And here's a Globe and Mail article that says high income earners pay $4.6 billion less in taxes in 2016. And look at that Will Ferrell, Bill Morneau lookalike. His wife is the heir to the McCain Foods empire, and his name is in the Panama Papers. Did you guys know that? If you didn't know that, you should look that up. That's pretty interesting, right? A finance minister of a G7 country whose name appears on the Panama Papers and who's married to a lot of money? Interesting, right? 10 of 12. Under the previous Conservative government, our sweeping, broad-based tax cuts provided the greatest relief to low, middle income earners, as confirmed by the Parliamentary Budget Officer. Global News, and a link to tax cuts in 2005. Net Canadians, $30 billion. And what are we? 11 of 12. Justin Trudeau is desperate, and his attacks ring ever more hollow. He has failed to balance the budget, secure the border, and build a pipeline. He can't defend his government's failed record, so he's resorting to pathetic and increasingly bizarre attacks on us. Conservatives will continue to expose Justin Trudeau's many failures and how Canadians will pay for them, while presenting our own vision for creating opportunity to help Canadians get by and get ahead. So that's 12 of 12. So I like all that. He points that out elegantly. He supports his work with links. Sir, would you like to do a video for me? I'm hiring. No, I'm not. No, I'm just kidding right now. But all of that was great. Here's another one. Andrew Scheer. Canadians should be deciding what is in the best interest of Canada. Foreign money has no place influencing our projects and policies, and my plan to build pipelines includes banning foreign money from influencing our decision-making. We cannot allow it to continue. Another one by Andrew Scheer. Life is getting more expensive for Canadians every day. What's Justin Trudeau's plan? A carbon tax that will make everyday essentials more expensive and doesn't help the environment. It's time for a government that will help Canadians get ahead instead of holding them back. And so all of those are Scheer's style on display in direct contrast to Bernier's more combative, more in-your-face style. Stylistically, I mean, there's no surprise what I prefer. But I mean, this is a conscious choice, just like ignoring Bernier is a conscious choice. This is not akin to taking the high road, but I think that's what they're attempting to try, right? And I think that they're missing opportunities to. This is a conversation, and it's not one way. And regardless of whether Mr. Scheer thinks it's one way, like Twitter is kind of you put it out there and you hope that it catches the. It says what you intended it to say. Sometimes what happens is it seems like you're dodging. By staying quiet, you're not actually answering the question. That goes with the Quebec pipelines. That goes with immigration numbers. That goes with a lot of the really hard things that Bernier is tackling. I understand that the CPC isn't as nimble as Bernier's party. Bernier gets to say this is the platform, and there's no time to make major tweaks to what he's running on. What he's running on is what he's running on. The CPC can afford to drag their heels and take, 8 months to put together a climate change package? I guess. But they're quickly losing ground. But all of that said, the tone of the campaign may appeal more to centrists who are sick and tired of liberal garbage. And like I said in other videos, I think the Liberals and the NDP are so far to the left that the majority of sane Canadians are sick and tired of them. Andrew Scheer inhabits the center very well. I think he picks up a ton of seats. I think he takes a lot of Ontario, and I think Maxime Bernier takes a lot of Quebec. That's my prediction. And I think Justin Trudeau is relegated to third or fourth. Oh, God willing, fourth. Okay, so liberal malfeasance, I suppose, liberal ridiculousness. Here is CanadaBuster tweeting, Liberal MP says you're a white supremacist if you protest against illegals flooding into our border with bogus asylum claims. This is another, and this is from 2019, but the tweet originally was from 2018. So note that this is further co-opting of language, and basically saying this is a case of somebody in a position of power, a Liberal MP, saying you're a white supremacist because of your views. And the newspapers ran with this. So this is insanity, right? So Chris Bittle tweeted, when white supremacists schedule a protest at your office, you know you're doing something right. And here's Mr. Bittle with Mr. Trudeau and proudly serving St. Catharines in Niagara. And there's all of this information, links in the description. And here's the news report from the 2018. It says, News Talk 610 says, protesters and counter-protesters gather outside St. Catharines MP's office. And it says, a protest and counter-protest have sprung up outside the office of St. Catharines Member of Parliament. MP Chris Bittle says they first learned about the protest last week, and today a group of people arrived outside of his office. The group waved a Canadian flag while holding the signs emblazoned with the words, quote, patriots on guard against Trudeau and jail ISIS fighters. And, quote, approximately 4 of them have shown up to protest the government, but it also seems very much an anti-Muslim sentiment to the group, Bittle tells CKTB News. The Niagara Anti-Racism Coalition is also here with a counter-protest, and they're outnumbering the white supremacists. So Bittle is the one who called them white supremacists, as far as I can tell, and he kind of doubles down on this on a bunch of tweets, and I'll show them to you in a minute. But I haven't seen any indication that these people self-identified as white supremacists beyond having a Patriots on Guard against Trudeau and a jail ISIS fighters sign. I have no knowledge of them self-identifying as white supremacists. So I find it interesting that this Liberal MP is using his position of power to paint these people as racist when they have a legitimate concern about people who fought against Canada in a different country coming back to live in Canada, and we're supposed to be okay with this? We're not okay with this. Okay, so back to the article. The outnumbering the white supremacists, there are about 15 or so anti-racism coalition members opposed to the 4 white supremacists. But it is upsetting to see in this day and time that there are still people who cling to this belief of white supremacy and are willing to show their faces in public at a busy street corner and say that to the rest of the community. So he's the one who labeled them as white supremacists. And if you search the Twitter advanced search and look for white supremacist on his timeline, there are a bunch of tweets that talk about white supremacists and talk specifically about this issue. And it's so out of touch with reality that I'm disappointed that we have, and walking through the rest of his Twitter feed is just as, well, it's exactly what you would expect. So I can't wait to kick these people out of office as soon as possible. This is insanity to have leaders of our country, people who are supposed to be setting policy, who believe this stuff and who believe that people who are protesting and using their democratic right to protest should be labeled white supremacists for their views. That's appalling. That's appalling for a member of parliament. And Justin Trudeau has set the tone, and so has Ahmed Hussen and all of these supposed leaders. They set the tone with their divisive words and their divisive actions, and they're flooding our country with foreign fighters who fought for foreign countries against Canada and against our allied countries, the United States. We know this. This is not controversial. And still, the government remains deaf to people who are saying no more. We're done. We're done. So I don't see how Trudeau wins in October. Not a chance. Not at all. Hopefully, anyway. But anyway, those are our liberal representatives. What a crazy world, right? So thank you for watching. Check out the People's Party of Canada.ca and check out CanadaPoly.com. We have a private forum and we'd love to have you join the conversation. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.